All right, thank you guys and good afternoon. Thank you for joining the BACP Business Affairs and Consumer Protection Pre-Submittal Conference. Specifically today, we will be discussing the Program Administrator for Small Business Capacity Building Program that Business Affairs and Consumer Protection is looking to hire to manage this program. I like to say at the beginning of these pre-submittal conferences that this particular RFP opportunity is for a program administrator. We are looking to partner with the program administrator for this program. So if you are a small business that is looking to submit an application to receive the services that would be offered as an outcome of this program, you are a little bit too early. We don't anticipate that the program will be open to businesses until first quarter of 2025. So what we will do first is hire the program administrator, work with that program administrator to design the program, and then open it up to eligible small businesses. So that's what we will be discussing today. We will try to steer away from any questions that are too specific about program design, because that will be part 2 of this process. So what I'll do is I'll launch into the agenda. We'll go through the agenda, and then we'll reserve questions until the end of the presentation. I'll provide, so this is the agenda. We have BACP as the Business Affairs and Consumer Protection is the department that manages this particular RFP opportunity. I will provide an overview of the Business Affairs and Consumer Protection Department, also known as BACP. And then we will provide an overview of the Small Business Capacity Building Program and provide you guys with an RFP timeline, and then reserve the last minutes of this meeting for questions. Regarding BACP, BACP is the Business Affairs and Consumer Protection. What we do is we ensure a vibrant marketplace for businesses, workers, and consumers in the city of Chicago. BACP licenses businesses and public vehicles, regulates business activity, protects consumers from fraud, enforces Chicago labor laws, partners with business service organizations, and provides education and resources for businesses. BACP is the department, and then these are all of the divisions within BACP. Clearly, you can see the names of them. I won't go into each one of them. What I will do is go into the Small Business Advocacy and Recovery division, which is where this RFP resides, and that is where the Economic Recovery Team also resides. As I just mentioned, we license, educate, and regulate, as well as empowering businesses in Chicago. We're looking to help them grow and succeed. And then if you want more information about BACP, there is a link that will be provided in the presentation. Specifically, the Small Business Advocacy Division, which again is responsible for this particular RFP opportunity. We support the small business ecosystem of Chicago, and we are looking to promote economic development. Specifically, we have our neighborhood strategy team, which a lot of you guys are aware of. The Neighborhood Business Development Centers, the Chicago Business Centers, and then we do the COVID-19 vaccination outreach for employers. And then more specifically, is the Economic Recovery Team. My name is Maurice Phillips. I am the director for the team. And Sarah Beamer is our projects administrator, who will be responsible for managing this particular program once it launches. This team was formed to manage the federal funding that we received from the American Rescue Plan Act, also known as ARPA. And then with that funding, we broke those programs into 3 distinct categories: our small business support, our nonprofit support, and our food equity. Again, here's a link to the Chicago BACP recovery plan. So if you want to get more information, I will ask you guys to go to that link, and there's all sorts of information for you guys. And then moving into the actual program itself, the Small Business Capacity Building Program. What we're looking to do is invest in Chicago small business ecosystem. We're looking to provide highly customized coaching and technical assistance to select organizations. Again, the goal of this particular RFP is to identify a program administrator. And so once we identify an eligible administrator, we will work with that administrator to design and implement high-touch capacity building programs to those eligible small businesses that have received grant funding through the BACP Small Business and Not-for-Profit Support Grant Program, which is RFP 10385. So approximately a few weeks ago, we closed 10385, which was the underlying grant program. So what we're looking to do is to now release this particular RFP to design a program that is specifically tailored to the small businesses that would have gone through that grant process, receive funding, and now we want to accompany or rather put those two pieces together. And so what we're looking for is the small business capacity program to build upon existing assets and strengths of those businesses and organizations where they have gaps in their systems, structures, skills, and resources. We want to invest significant resources to prepare and position them to deepen their impacts in their communities and sustain themselves as part of their neighborhood and sector infrastructure. So that's a lot of words. Essentially, what we're saying is small businesses that go through the grants program, again, that's a program that will be designed when that application opens. It's separate from this program. When that application opens, we will alert the eligible small businesses what that application process looks like, and then they will go through receiving funding. Once they receive that funding, we will partner them with this program, which will offer coaching and technical assistance. So on the one hand, they'll get the grant funding, and then on the other hand, they will get technical assistance and coaching, hopefully to strengthen those businesses and help them along the path to prosperity. Small business capacity building program will be for one organization that's a local or national nonprofit or for-profit. The budget will be $3.5 million. The contract terms, as I mentioned earlier, we are looking to start this program in January of 2025 through December of 2026. And unfortunately, there will be no extensions with this particular program. We're looking for applicants that demonstrate the ability to design and implement a high-touch capacity building program for eligible small business organizations to provide the following services: highly customized small business coaching, professional service support, outreach and engagement, creation of a public website. And then we just want to make sure that we will be looking at those organizations to make sure that they comply with our federal and city requirements for tracking, reporting, and auditing. And then with all programs, we will require you to stick to the milestones prior to the end of the period of performance, which in this case will be that 2-year time frame. The RFP response eligibility, again, it could be a nonprofit, only 501c3s or 501c6s. It could be a collective applying with a nonprofit fiscal sponsor. If you are a for-profit business, you could be an LLC, an LWCA, a C Corp, S Corp, B Corp. For those profit businesses, again, we make this bullet point, and this is always a topic of conversation. Those for-profit businesses cannot profit from this program. So in other words, if you submit a budget, all of the expenses within that budget your budget should cover all of the expenses. There should be no leftover for you to profit. This is a federal requirement, and you guys would have to adhere to those federal regulations detailed in 2 CFR 200, which is Uniform Guidance for Subrecipients. Again, BACP is we're not experts on this 2 CFR 200 Uniform Guidance. So what I would suggest is that you guys Google, do the research, and find out how, if you are a for-profit entity, how you could align your proposal to make sure that it is in compliance with that regulation. Federal requirement. It is not a City of Chicago requirement. Because this is federal funding, we are required to alert you guys to this requirement. In terms of joint proposals, of course, they are eligible, but we are asking that if there are multiple parties, interested in responding, that you just take one applicant who submits that application, and then the rest of you guys would be listed as a subcontractor. It is open to local and national organizations. We will prioritize partnerships with local entities though. Applicants with existing contracts with the city that are not in good standing will not be considered for new funding. In addition, applicants that have a city contract terminated for default are not eligible for this opportunity. And respondents that do not meet these eligibility requirements will not have their applications evaluated. Similarly, incomplete applications will not be evaluated for this funding opportunity. So we'll move on to budgets and program expenses. The applicants must complete a program budget outlining all detailed expenses in its entirety for this proposal. For example, you should list the salaries, the program materials, marketing, etc. Anything that you think should be billed legitimately to this program, you should list it in the budget. We want an exhaustive budget so that we get a really good view of the potential organization and how they plan on allocating the funding for this program. So please be as detailed as possible when you're submitting that budget. Indirect costs includes for facilities and administrative costs must be charged in accordance with uniform guidance. Requirements at the 10% de minimis standard. Any indirect cost rate higher than that standard requires a negotiated indirect cost rate agreement with a federal cognizant agency. In other words, we expect that all of you guys are complying with that 10% de minimis indirect cost. That's not to say that it is not possible for you to have another rate. It's just that that requires additional conversations and approval. So you would have to really paint the picture and provide us justification why you would not be in compliance with that 10% de minimis rate. In all likelihood, our expectation is that the selected organization will be within that 10% de minimis standard. Talk about program materials. Materials necessary to design and conduct the program must be valued at $4,999 or less. And that's because we want to make sure that those costs do not exceed what the federal government's definition for equipment and or capital assets are. Program marketing and outreach should also be spelled out in your proposal. You want to make sure that you're providing marketing and that you're providing outreach to promote the programs. So make sure that you do spell that out in your proposal. And then we put a bold statement at the bottom, which is to alert you guys that capital asset purchases would not be considered allowable for this particular initiative. So in other words, you cannot purchase equipment. You can lease equipment, but you should not be purchasing equipment. Property, again, you can't buy buildings, anything that's permanent that would live beyond the timeline for this program would not be considered an allowable expense. And certainly no capital assets would be allowed. So let's talk about reporting requirements. Again, we're saying that we all know that each of these programs have reporting requirements. And so we want to make sure that you design and develop a data collection process, and it should include success metrics. We will work with an external evaluator to make sure that these reporting requirements are being met and that we have collected the data. The delegate agency will be required to maintain requested data in a city-approved platform and to submit reports, including impact reporting, to the city. And the delegate agency will be required to provide all data in a dynamic file format such as Microsoft Excel. Again, we will look at what you guys are proposing, and then the city will work with you guys to determine what is the best reporting metric or tool or reporting tools. We use Microsoft as an example because it's pretty much a standard that everybody else is using. If you guys come up with something other than Microsoft, certainly submit it and we can have a conversation about it. Ultimately, once we select an agency, it will be up to the city to determine and decide if that reporting tool is one that is acceptable for this particular program. And then speaking of data, we're going to, at a bare minimum, we want to collect the total number of small businesses that have been served by the program, the total number of group and or one-on-one workshop hours. We're looking at surveys, pre and post surveys, and then we want summaries of project outcomes, what you guys proposed versus the actual outcomes. The delegate agency is also required to keep detailed records on costs in addition to any other record keeping required for compliance with federal requirements related to the American Rescue Plan Act, state and local fiscal recovery fund program. So as we're aware of all of the local, federal, and state requirements, we certainly will let you guys know what those requirements are as it relates to reporting. So again, we just want to make you guys aware that that is a requirement, but specifically after we've selected a delegate agency, we will work with you guys to make sure that you are aware of what those reporting requirements are. Okay, so once you've logged into the e-procurement system known as iSupplier, you will access the application, and then you will submit that application based off of each of the questions, which are broken into the scoring criteria categories. And so I just want to give you guys an overview. The maximum score will be 100. And so each of those categories have points. Organizational experience is 35 points. And so again, these are the bullet points. We're looking at the missions, the vision, and the core values of the organization. We're looking at the leadership, the staff, board accountability, and how it serves the community. We're looking at the experience this organization would have supporting small businesses in Chicago. We're looking at their experience administering a program like this for small business capacity building. We're also looking to see if the organization has experience managing federally funded programs. So that would be in the organizational experience category, which is 35 points. And then we're looking at the program design and implementation strategy that the organization is proposing. We're looking at how you guys are detailing your activities and your application. Again, I have to caution you guys, please, please, please be detailed. I cannot tell you how many times we've received applications where we get just a short sentence or a few words, which does not accurately give us enough insight to determine if this organization is capable of executing such a program. So be descriptive. Please read each question and provide answers to each question. Do not leave a question unanswered. In the event that a question is asking for you to provide an attachment, please provide those attachments. We want you to describe your program's intended outputs and outcomes. How many small businesses will you serve? How will you reach those targeted populations? So on and so forth. We also are asking the organization to describe its capacity to administer the program and its ability to execute it within a time frame. So that's important. We want to know if you've administered a program, similar size, and if you are capable of executing it within the time frame that we have allowed for this program. On to the next category, which will be 30 points. That's capacity and budget justification. What is the total amount that you're requesting? We will review that submitted budget. Again, it is required that you attach the budget, so please make sure that you do submit that budget. Also describe how your organization will fiscally manage the project and monitor the expenses and keep the appropriate financial records. We're also looking at the details regarding the programmatic capacity to implement. What is the step size? What is the salaries of the individuals that you have placed on the program, and what are their qualifications to manage the program? The other thing we're looking at is the details on the data evaluation process. How will you track the data and how will you report the data? So that's 30 points. And then we assign a point value in the last category, which is your overall responsiveness. Again, this goes back to my earlier statement. Did you read thoroughly each question and answer each question, provide an answer to each question, and an appropriate answer to each question? It's an opportunity for you guys to give us as much insight as possible to make it easier for us to be able to evaluate the application. Okay, so the contract details, the contract terms, the initial contract will be for 24 months through January 2025 is when it starts, and it will end in December 2026. And unfortunately, there will be no extensions. All programming for this grant will be completed, must be completed by December 31st of 2026. And then how to apply. You have to complete an application for this RFP through the Department of Procurement's e-procurement system, which is iSupplier. And I want to pause here and have a little bit of a conversation. iSupplier is the system that is required to submit an application. We cannot accept paper applications. We cannot accept applications that you guys want to email us. I cannot stress again, the requirement is for you guys to submit that application through iSupplier. And what I would suggest is that you guys start the process as quickly as possible. We will provide a link to iSupplier. It is also listed in the RFP opportunity, but we will provide a link to that. You guys need to establish an iSupplier account if you do not already have one. And then I would say begin this application process as quickly and as soon as possible, because you need to become familiar with how to navigate through iSupplier. BACP is not responsible for iSupplier. I stressed that with each one of these pre-submittal conferences, and I'm going to stress it again. We cannot answer questions about how to navigate it, how long it's going to take for you guys to get access to the system, how to reset your passwords, how to create attachments. None of those things are within our ability to answer, because we do not manage that system. We are a user of this system. So I would, again, stress that you guys get access as quickly as possible and make use of the online help, as well as the iSupplier help desk phone number. Become familiar with that and reach out to them to answer those questions. Unfortunately, this department cannot answer any issues relative to glitches with the system, how to navigate or respond. And I'm stressing that because we find that an inordinate amount of people submit their applications or start their process, and then they reach out to have conversations with this department about iSupplier. And unfortunately, it is not the best use of anybody's time, because we can't provide you any support. The procurement department has selected iSupplier as the vehicle by which you guys are to submit applications. And so they manage that process. And so you'll have all of your interaction where the use of that system should be through the support information that is provided. If you have specific questions as they relate to this particular opportunity, by all means, we will answer those questions. But if it's about technical issues related to iSupplier, unfortunately, we will not be responding to those questions. So here's the timelines. The due date for this RFP is October 15th, 2024 by noon. So if you are attempting to submit an application by 12:01, it is unfortunately too late. The opportunity closes at exactly noon. So we do get a lot of calls and questions shortly after noon asking if we could provide an extension. Unfortunately, out of fairness to all of those other applicants who have submitted applications within the timeline and the due date, we can't extend the deadline. In the event that there are some issues overall with the system that prevented all users, there is some potential that the deadline could be extended. But again, that would be something that iSupplier would alert us, and then we would obviously alert all of the applicants that some extension is possible. But that is extremely rare, and that we would extend the deadline based off of those technical issues. So again, I would really caution you guys and really encourage you to start the process of getting access to iSupplier becoming familiar with that system as quickly as possible, well in advance of the application due date. It is not the easiest system to navigate, and based off of that, I would expect that you should spend some time learning how to submit documents and navigate through all of the questions within iSupplier. And so, again, the due date is October 15th by noon. And then what we will do is review those applications, those completed applications, and then we're looking to have a decision sometime in late November of this year. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to provide a recording of this conference, and it will be uploaded to Business Affairs and Consumer Protection's YouTube channel. And so you guys can take a look at the questions that will come out of this, as well as the presentation. And then once that deadline has closed, all of those proposals will undergo a technical review. And then if there's some small irregularities with those applications, it will be within BACP's discretion to accept those. And if we do it for one of those applications, we will do it for all. There's just sort of a disclaimer saying that, for instance, if you forgot to, I don't know, I can't give you an example, but if it's something small and minor with the application, relatively speaking, we may accept some sort of discrepancy. And if we do it for one, we'll do it for all. But that's not in reference to extending the application due date or time. If you have issues with actual navigating of iSupplier, that would not qualify as something that we would be able to look beyond and accept past the due date. Not only would it not be something that, from a process perspective, it would not be something we would be able to do from a technical perspective. Once that clock winds down, there is no ability for us to manipulate the receiving of applications beyond that timeline. So make sure you guys get your access, make sure you get all your questions answered as it relates to using that system, and make sure you get all your questions and clarifications relative to this RFP opportunity, and then start the process of submitting the application as soon as possible. So again, our some contact information here. If you have questions or need clarifications about the program, the Economic Recovery Team has an email address that you guys can submit those applications to, inquiries to. Not the applications. The applications, again, will be through iSupplier, but if you have program-specific questions, then reach out to us via email and we will respond. Here's the iSupplier help desk information. There's a phone number. These are their hours. This is their email address. And just a note that BACP does not manage iSupplier, and we cannot offer any assistance or guidance regarding its usage. And so that's pretty much all that I have with this presentation. And so I will open it up to questions.
All right, Maurice, I will read these in the order in which the questions were typed out. First question, will there only be one RFP award or multiple awardees?
This opportunity is looking for one program administrator. So it will be one program administrator that we will collaborate with to design the actual program that will include the coaching and technical assistance, where there will be many recipients of that coaching and technical assistance. So the program administrator is just one award.
Great. Next question is, because you are allowing for-profits to apply, are there any minority preference points given?
No, this application process does not specifically award point values based on minority participation.
Great. Next question. Can you forego indirect costs on your program budget?
Yes, I would not recommend it, but if that's what the organization feels that it wants to do, then certainly it has happened in the past. But yes, to answer your question, yes, that's a possibility.
Next question. Are you required to pay fringe benefits or can you use 1099s for staff?
You can use 1099s for staff. That again, that's your proposal. That's the organization should put together that proposal. If you're not even, you can submit fringe benefits in the budget. We're not requiring you to submit it in the budget. If you want 1099 staff members, that's entirely up to the organization as well.
Great. Next question is a little bit longer. Can the data evaluation and wrap up after the grant distribution happen after 2026? Or do we have to plan wrap up time into our 2-year timeline? What is the deadline for data delivery?
That's a good question. So the entirety of these programs should be wrapped up by 2026, and that would be inclusive of all reporting. And so once we select an organization, we will work with them on the timeline, and we will figure out when the program should wrap up and how much of their time should be devoted to the administrative portion, which would be inclusive of the reporting. But yes, the entirety of the program should be wrapped up by December 31st of 2026, which would be inclusive of reporting.
Great, thank you. Next question. How many businesses are expected to be supported through this program?
Cannot answer that. That's a program design question. Once we select a program administrator, we will work with that program administrator to determine the number of businesses that will potentially participate in this program. So I think that question is a little bit too soon. Once we select the organization, we will work with them and try to determine what that business population number looks like.
Next question is in a similar vein. Will this program be open to any small businesses or just those that are receiving grants through the previously mentioned BACP Small Business and Non-for-Profit Support Grant, RFP 10385?
Sarah, do you recall? I honestly don't
Yes,
remember.
this is in the slides and the RFP. And of course, this is getting a little program design-y, but this will only be open to small businesses that have received grant funding through that previously mentioned BACP grant. It will not be open to outside businesses that did not receive grant funding.
And to Sarah's point, again, that's into program design. We will publish what the eligibility is once we've selected the program administrator for this program.
All right, next question is, how is the agency paid for work? Is there monthly billing?
So the agency, this is a reimbursable grant. So the agency would have to incur costs upfront. And then our expectation is that they will submit monthly invoicing to the city to be paid. And full transparency, we know that it is not the most straightforward and easiest process to get those invoices to be paid out. So we're looking for an organization that understands that there might be some delays in getting reimbursed from the city of Chicago, and that they are in a fiscal position to be able to deal with what those delays look like. So we will require the program to submit monthly invoicing, provided that all of those invoices are correct. and are in compliance with what our finance department is looking for, the reimbursement process should go smoother. What we find is that there's a lot of back and forth with those invoices. Usually, supporting materials are not provided, or sometimes there's questions as to whether or not they're eligible expenses. And so monthly invoicing will be required, so that we will want you to get paid as quickly as possible. But we also are realistic and set the expectation that it may not necessarily be reimbursed as quickly as monthly. And so put yourself in a position fiscally to be able to weather some of those delays.
Next question, it's a little bit of a longer one. Apart from capital asset purchases, are there any other restrictions on the use of ARPA funds? Additionally, are we able to use the funds to hire coaches as contractors, or would you prefer to see the coaches included as part of personnel?
I don't prefer either way. Again, this goes back to the organization that's submitting the application. What works for that organization and its structure, and how they submit their budget. Either way is an allowable cost. In terms of the restrictions of ARPA, there are quite a few restrictions of ARPA. I would encourage you to look on the U.S. Treasury's website. I believe even on the City of Chicago's website, we list what the parameters are for ARPA. And not only is it from a federal perspective, but you also have to be very aware of the requirements as it relates to the City of Chicago and how we're administering ARPA dollars. I do not have the time to go into a very detailed answer, unfortunately, on that, other than to say, visit the City of Chicago's website to look at ARPA. And then you could also visit the U.S. Treasury's website to look at their requirements for ARPA funding.
All right, next question. Does the website component need to be live before services can be provided by the administrator?
Yes.
Next question. I know there is a 4,000 character limit to the questions. Can the questions be expanded with attachments?
I believe you can attach supplemental documents. That's an iSupplier question. And again, I would highly encourage the person asking that question to reach out to the iSupplier help desk and get some guidance on how they can submit those supplemental documents.
You mentioned for organizations that are not located in Chicago to provide local partnerships. Would you please give an example of what a local partnership is?
There are local nonprofits, business service organizations that are within the city of Chicago. We would encourage you to reach out to those. You could also reach out to the local chambers of commerce in the city of Chicago. Even our neighborhood business development centers would know of those organizations if they are not those organizations themselves. So there's different ways for you to sort of reach out and try to partner with a local organization.
When do you expect the small business grants to be awarded? Will grant awards be evenly distributed throughout the 2 years, in cohorts, or on a rolling basis?
The awards would be first quarter of 2025. Again, that's really specific into program design. We're not at the point yet that I would be able to provide those answers.
How will the success of the program be measured by the city?
Program design specific. Generally speaking, we would be looking at the volume of small businesses that have been touched, some of the outcomes, some of those success stories, businesses that have gone through the programs, businesses that have received grant funding. Um, we'll interact with the organization and the businesses that have been participating in these programs and measure the outcomes at that point. I couldn't give you any more specifics than that. Broadly speaking, we will definitely require the organization to track the number of businesses that they've interacted with. And we will expect that they will be collecting success stories. And 2 years from now, we will have a better um, answer, and hopefully it'll be more successful for those participants and those businesses. But I, that's my best answer that I could provide at this point.
Is there a specific target area of the city that is of interest to the program businesses served?
We obviously will be looking for underserved communities. It's open to the entirety of the city, but we would be looking for those underserved communities.
This next question, what advice do you have for new consulting organizations that are interested in applying?
Well, I keep harping on this, but you need to be, any new organization needs to become really familiar with iSupplier quickly and understand how to get access and number of days that it takes to get that access, and learning some of the quick navigational points of that system. So becoming familiar with iSupplier. Number two, taking a look at the city's website, looking at some of the programs that this department has administered from the American Rescue Plan, becoming familiar with the process that the RFP process as it relates to the city, and being really thorough when answering questions. Do a double review, a triple review, make sure that you've attached all of your documentation, make sure that you are thoroughly responding to this opportunity, and give yourself enough time to review your application to make sure that you have submitted everything that's required, and then just sort of familiarize yourself with the city itself and some of these initiatives. I think that'll give you, the new organization, some insights as to how programs like this are being administered.
What is the expected program duration per business?
That's program specific. Do not know at this point. Other than to say that all programming will have to be wrapped up by December 31st, 2026.
Is maintenance of the coalition expected to be funded by the award?
I don't understand that question. So if the person who typed it could provide clarity, we could attempt to answer it again. We'll move on, and then if you guys provide a little bit more clarity, we'll come back to that question.
Can subcontractors, in addition to the delegate agency and city, retain ownership rights of the content developed and published on the public website?
So the city has specific requirements around that data and the ownership of that data. I would not be in a position to tell you what those specific requirements are. We will consult with our law department and our Department of Technology. So there are specific ownership requirements around it. and how many, and what the duration of how long that data should be available. Cannot answer that question for you now. We can certainly try to look into it and get an answer for you.
Next question, does the city envision business service organizations being paid through this award being included in the budget? Or will services provided by the business service organizations be expected to be paid as one-off services? I'm a little confused by that question.
So, yeah, I am too. Generally speaking, whatever expense that the program administrator believes is relevant to them administering this program, they should include it in the budget. The budget, you guys should certainly submit that budget once we've decided to award an organization. We will work with them to fine tune that budget. So there will be additional conversations around the budget. But generally speaking, my response to that would be, if you think is an expense as it relates to this program, please, please, please include it in the budget and create your justification as to how it is attached to this particular program and how you as an organization thinks it's an eligible expense. Budget conversations will definitely happen with the organization that will be selected to manage this program.
Does the program grant include an aspect of supporting a small business brick and mortar needs, parentheses, search? Can we bring in real estate professionals? Is this strictly capacity building about business operations and or brick and mortars?
So if you look at the RFP, and again, this is very specific, this again is sort of venturing into program design. It's not an exhaustive list of services. If you think that there is a potential for an additional service, you can list it in your proposal. If you look in the RFP, we have like different categories of support services that we would expect the awardee to offer to the businesses. Again, submit it in your application and we'll take a look at it. We certainly could not possibly cover all of the potential services that are offered. Some of those services will be eligible and could be incorporated into the program. Others would probably not be eligible. So that's not to say you shouldn't submit the request. Put it in your application.
What reporting tools or platforms will be used to track program outcomes and deliverables?
It's a negotiation with the selected grantee. We will work with the organization. You guys need to propose a reporting tool. Ultimately, we will have a final say-so as to what that tool looks like. As I mentioned earlier, Microsoft Excel it has always been used as a tool that, or rather an application software that we've received reporting on. I would expect that, more than likely most people will present Microsoft Excel. Some people will use other programs that are out there. Put it in your proposal. Tell us the details of that reporting tool, and we will evaluate it. But I cannot prescribe to you what the reporting tool should be.
Next question, you mentioned the organization should not show a profit for this request for proposal. Does that mean the submitted budget should show the entire $3.5 million is expended for the implementation of the program?
Your budget should account for all of the expenditures for the program. So if you list an expenditure And a lot of for-profit businesses struggle with this. I get lots of phone calls about this. Essentially what we're saying is that that small business, whatever the costs that are associated with this program, they should be covered by the budget. There should be no surplus left over that would be perceived as a profit for that business. So for every dollar that you're listing in that budget, each of those dollars should be spent for this program.
Does the one-on-one coaching and training need to be in person in Chicago, or can some of it be conducted virtually?
That's more into program design. Generally speaking, we would expect a combination of both.
For showing the capacity to administer the program, are you looking for an organization to have excess current capacity or the ability to hire additional capacity? I'm a
I-
little confused by that question.
Yeah, I think it's both. If you have excess capacity, then, let us know that, you have extra staff that would be able to, that's not engaged in other programs and would have the time and availability to commit to managing this program. That's fine. Or if you need to hire additional staff to manage the program, that's fine as well.
Can the organization select a subset from among the pool of grantees to get increased support services? Or does the organization need to provide the same service to all?
That's again into program design. Um, yeah, I don't believe, yeah, that's a program design question. I don't think we're at that point yet that we could answer that.
Would updates to compliance need to be accounted for in the budget?
Update to compliance in what respect?
Great
If there's any,
question.
yeah, generally
They don't
speaking,
say.
if there are any compliance related issues that impact this program and the underlying funding source, you should be made aware of it well in advance, so you would not have to be making adjustments for it. If for whatever reason some compliance comes out midway through the report, then we will work with you guys to, make adjustments to the timeline to be able to comply. In other words, you will be given sufficient time to comply with whatever the requirements are locally, federally, statewide.
And I'm seeing a lot of repeat questions of how many businesses will be participating in this program. This question was answered earlier. That is program design related and is something that will be discussed with the chosen organization sometime in early 2025. So if there's multiple times this question has been answered or asked, so I will be dismissing any further repeats of that identical question.
Okay. Yeah, program design, again, you guys should be submitting to us what you think your organization can handle, what you think this program looks like based off of the requirements that are listed in the RFP. Unfortunately, we can't give you too specific of guidance to what that program design looks like at this point, or even once we make the award to an organization, we will definitely deep dive into program design. But we have to have a starting point, right? You guys have to have proposed what you think this program looks like.
All right, we have about 3 minutes left. We'll try to answer as many questions as possible before 1 o'clock. Next question. What percentage of the 3.5 million is typically allotted in the budget just for program admin operating costs? Example, 10%, etc.
Sarah, do you recall, I don't know if we said that total in this particular program, was it 10%?
I do not know off the top of my head. If there is a limitation, it will be listed in the RFP itself.
Yeah. If there's a limitation, as Sarah said, it'll be in the RFP. I thought it was 10%. We'll take a look at this one and respond when we publish the Q&A.
Does this mean the 3.5 million budget does not include the grant given to businesses and are specifically to be focused on how to help them using the grant they have received?
Correct. This $3.5 million is completely separate from the grants program. This is technical assistance and coaching that we're looking to hire an organization who will partner with service providers who will offer these services. The grants is completely separate. This program is in no way a disbursement of grant funding itself. Grants being dispersed is completely separate from this program. The $3.5 million would be administering the technical assistance and coaching.
Since ARPA funds must be fully utilized by December 31st of 2026, do all invoices need to be paid and submitted to BACP before this deadline?
Yes. That's the expectation, is that when we say wrapped up by December 31st, 2026, that is the expectation. So prior to December 31st, 2026, we will start working with those organizations. As I mentioned earlier, when we start wrapping up a program, we should allow some time for some of those wrap-up tasks, which would be inclusive of final reporting and final invoicing, and all of that. We'll work with the organization on what that timeline looks like, conceivably several months before the program wraps up, or several months before the December 31st, 2026 deadline. The program should have wrapped up. And so at that point, it'll just be making sure all of those invoices have been submitted and paid, and all of the final reporting has been submitted. So we're at time, Sarah.
Yep, this is it. Thank you everyone for submitting your questions. This Q&A, I've been typing out all these questions and Maurice has answered, will be attached to the RFP in iSupplier, and a copy of these questions will be emailed out along with a copy of the presentation and a link to this recording once it is posted to BACP's YouTube page within a few business days.
All right, thank you guys for participating.